Welcome back. I'm pretty excited for this video. I've never done a full cycle overview of what's going on in my body over here on YouTube. This cycle, we're gonna figure out if LUFS is still happening in my body or what is going on. Steven and I tried to get pregnant for 4.5 years. We started April 2020 and we actually did get pregnant July of 2020, but unfortunately lost that baby to a miscarriage. And then we continued to try after that. Our journey is very long. So many things happened along the way. But after 2 years of being told I had unexplained infertility, we moved. I found a new doctor, a napro doctor, and we found out that I had LUFS, luteinizing unruptured follicle syndrome. Now, what that is all of our eggs are inside follicles, and basically what happens, for whatever reason, that follicle is really hard, so the egg has a really hard time getting out of it. So my body acts as if I'm ovulating, but I don't actually ovulate, which is really wild because I would have no idea that I had LUFS, and a lot of people don't even know that they have LUFS unless they go to a doctor who's trained to look for LUFS. Everything in my cycle acts as if I'm ovulating. I get positive OPK tests, my temperature rises, my blood work comes back as if I ovulated, I get fertile cervical mucus, I cramp, like anything and everything that you may wonder, like, oh, but have you tried this to see if you're ovulating? All those things act as if I am ovulating, but the reality is the only way to know with LUFS is going in and doing follicle monitoring. It's a vaginal ultrasound that you go in and they track your follicles, and then you have to go 24 to 48 hours after suspected ovulation to see if the follicle actually released the egg. Last year I started working with a natural medicine doctor and we found out I had E. coli. I was super sick. We also found out I had insulin resistance. We did a lot of work on my gut. I did GI testing, all these things, and I got put on a medication called metformin to help with my insulin resistance. And I met with my natural medicine doctor end of last year, and she said, what do you think about going in and doing follicle monitoring in January to see if any of the work we've done on your body and the medication you're on has influenced your body to ovulate? We don't know exactly why LUFS happens or what it comes from, but I know in my body it's because of a lot of things. My endometriosis, my adenomyosis, inflammation, insulin resistance, thyroid. There's so many things that can influence it. So do I think my body's ovulating from just being on metformin and doing all the work we did on my gut? No, I don't know. Today is cycle day 10. I'm about to walk in here and do my first follicle scan. I'm gonna take you along for the whole thing. We're gonna see this cycle, if my body is ovulating or if it's not. Who knows? Also, the tricky thing with LUFS though is, let's say my body does ovulate this cycle, it doesn't necessarily mean that my body's going to ovulate the next cycle. The only thing that we saw work for my body to successfully ovulate month after month was doing PRP in my ovaries and my uterus and doing Lupron as a trigger shot. No other trigger shots worked for me. I typically do around 3 to 4 follicle scans, including the one that's gonna confirm if LUFS happened or if I ovulated. So this is follicle scan number 1. I'm already starting to have fertile cervical mucus, which that's a good sign because for so long I didn't have fertile cervical mucus. And I feel like that has been influenced by my endometriosis and my gut health. So that makes me feel better about my gut health maybe. But even with fertile cervical mucus, LUFS can still happen. So let's go see what these eggies are up to. I just went to the wrong floor because I haven't been here in so long. What a rush. I haven't been there in so long. That felt so weird to be back. I kind of forgot how much I get to see and know about what's going on each cycle. I'm actually on cycle day 11. My endometrium lining was 9.8 millimeters, which that's pretty good for where we are, especially from someone who used to have a very thin endometrium lining. I had 2 follicles on, I believe, the right side, which is where I've been having some pain. That one of them was 24 millimeters. That's pretty large for where we are. Not abnormal, but I mean, normally that's like at time of ovulation. And then there was a 14 millimeter one over there as well, but that one he wrote down as complex. It looked very odd. And then on the other side, there was a bunch of little follicles. So that kind of seems like a win. We used to only ever see like 1 follicle, maybe 2 follicles on one side every time I'd come in. Then after PRP, we saw tons of little follicles and we saw like the dominant follicle, all of that. So I felt like that's kind of a win to see all the little follicles on the other side, but I don't know. What happens at my doctor's office is I go in, they have an ultrasound tech that does it all, and he can only tell you so much. They send it to my doctor reviews it all, and then I'll get an email. So we'll wait to hear back of what she has to say. I don't know when I'm gonna come in next. I guess we'll see. But with that dominant follicle already, I'm wondering if she's gonna have me come in tomorrow or if she thinks it's gonna ovulate and I'll come in 2-ish days, but I guess we'll see. It's now the end of the day and I just heard back from my natural medicine doctor. She said she really wanted my napro to look over the scans as well as her, because my napro is the doctor who's done all my follicle scans in the past. She knows my body very well. She did my endometriosis removal surgery, my laparoscopic surgeries, all of that. I've been seeing her for like 2-something years. She's amazing. But now my natural medicine doctor works with my napro doctor, which is really cool. So my natural medicine doctor is the one that's overseeing these follicle scans right now, just so we can see what's happening in this body. And she said she wanted my napro to take a look at them as well. So turns out it's what I suspected. It seems like LUFS happened last cycle. And so that 14 millimeter follicle on my right side is that LUF. So it is now a cyst. So it was the follicle that tried to release an egg last cycle, didn't happen, LUFS happened, and now it became a cyst. And then that influenced this cycle's ovulation. Now that huge follicle we saw is gonna most likely be a LUF as well. She wants me to come back Thursday to make sure these cysts are shrinking and no other issues are happening. I'll also do blood work there as well. And then I'm not sure what she's gonna want me to do in the luteal phase. I'm assuming she's gonna want me to do progesterone shots to make sure we get rid of these cysts or shrink them and they go away. I guess we'll see what that Thursday follicle scan says and we'll go from there. We are back at my doctor's office. It's now Thursday. Let's go in and hope and pray these cysts aren't getting bigger and they're shrinking, and we'll see what the plan is from there. Where did it go? One thing about my body is it's always going to keep us on our toes. It's always a mystery. We never know what's going to happen. That was not what we were expecting. That was so bizarre. At one point, me and the tech were like looking at each other and being like, what are we looking at? And he's like, I don't know. So weird. So we went in there expecting to see those 2 cysts. 14 millimeter cyst was still there, very oddly shaded. We're assuming it's a LUF from last cycle. But then the 24 millimeter follicle was gone. Like, poof, gone. We kept looking. Then he sees a 7 millimeter follicle. There was free fluid, which means the follicle ruptured. What typically happens if there's a 24 millimeter follicle that is going to rupture and release an egg, not all follicles actually have eggs inside of them, but let's say it did and it ruptured, released the egg. In 2 days' time, it would go down from 24 millimeters to maybe like 12 millimeters, 14 millimeters. But to 7 millimeters, I don't know. That was so weird. This body is so bizarre. I can't. My endometrium lining was 11 millimeters, which that's a win, because in the past with where I am in my cycle, it's typically been way thinner. So we're going to take that as a win. But yeah, I don't even know what this means. Like what? So now we have to wait to hear back from my doctor and see what she says, but bizarre. Me and Georgie were just out running errands and my doctor called. Danny buddy. Just sitting there munching on his fingers. Yeah, my doctor called and I ovulated. Like, what? That was such a turn of events. And this is why you always go back after suspected ovulation, even when you think they are just cysts. Like, that was so interesting. And I didn't mention this because I didn't even want to think oh yeah, maybe I am ovulating or start the buzz. But on Tuesday, my doctor was like, there is still a chance that you could ovulate and this isn't just a huge cyst. So keep that in mind. But of course, in my head, I'm like, there's just no way. We've seen this so many times in the past where LUFS happens and it's a wash. So she does want us to keep an eye on that 14 millimeter cyst, because she was like, I really do want to monitor this to just make sure it's going to go away on its own. It's going to shrink. She said in the next few months, come back so we can just see what's going on. But yeah, I ovulated. Okay, slay body, slay. What? That is such a win. We do know that LUFS is still happening because that cyst that we think is a LUF from last cycle, but we also know that my body can now ovulate too. Slay. So I'm happy with these results. All right, we know that both are happening, and if or when we jump back into trying to conceive, we can do some more monitoring, see what's going on, and go from there. Wow, that's such thrilling news. Go body, go. Slay.